If she can walk, nothing is broken. That was what my brother said after my daughter was shoved down a flight of wet stone steps. My parents watched her struggle to stand, stopped a stranger from calling an ambulance, then forced her to finish the tour. But when I asked for her phone, everyone suddenly became nervous. What had my daughter photographed before she fell? The doctor placed his pen against a crooked white line on the scan and told me my daughter had walked more than 2 miles on a broken leg. A nurse had cut her jeans from the knee down because the swelling was severe. The skin around her ankle was purple and tight. Both palms were scraped raw. Her hair was still damp from the October rain. And she kept apologizing. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin the tour." The doctor explained that the fracture was close to the ankle. It may not have been badly displaced when she fell, but hours of putting weight on it had shifted the bone. But surgery was now a real possibility. Then he said something I have never forgotten. Being able to walk does not mean a bone is not broken. Sometimes it only means a frightened child kept going because adults told her to. The doctor asked who had known she was hurt and still made her continue. My daughter looked at me first. It was the look of a child asking permission to tell the truth about people she loved. I took her hand and told her she was not in trouble. Then she said her cousin had pushed her near the stone steps while trying to grab her phone. My father reached her first. My brother came down seconds later. But instead of checking her leg, he took the phone and asked how many pictures had uploaded. My mother pulled her up and told her not to scare the group. Or a stranger offered to call an ambulance. My mother stopped him. My brother told my daughter that if she could walk, nothing was broken. So she walked for 3 hours. I stepped into the hallway and opened our family group chat. My daughter is receiving emergency treatment for a fractured leg. No one is to contact her directly. Send every explanation to me in writing. My brother said she had slipped and voluntarily continued. My mother wrote that she was well enough to keep going. My father said no one had forced her. 3 people, 3 messages, almost the same language. It felt less like memory and more like a story they had already agreed on. I did not call them. I saved every message and every timestamp. Then I put my phone face down. All my life, my family had told people to calm down whenever they needed time to decide what everyone was supposed to remember. This time, I gave them the silence they wanted. But I used it to preserve every lie. 4 days later, the girl they planned to blame would walk into a school counselor's office carrying my daughter's phone, a locked file box, and a statement she had been ordered to memorize. That night, I still did not know what was on the phone. I only knew my family had been more afraid of it than they had been of a child with a broken leg. To understand why, I had to go back to the moment I first saw my daughter standing alone in the rain. A few hours before the hospital, Beacon Hill looked almost peaceful. The October rain had darkened the brick sidewalks and turned the stone steps slick. Red brick townhouses lined the narrow streets. Tourists stood beneath umbrellas, waiting for rides home. Then, I saw my daughter. She was several yards away from the group, holding an iron railing with both hands. Mud streaked one knee of her jeans. Her right foot barely touched the pavement. Her lips were so pale they looked gray. The first thing she said was not that she was hurt. "Mom, I'm sorry." That stopped me. She was barely able to stand, yet somehow she had already been convinced that her pain was a problem for everyone else. My brother stood near the tour van, talking to 2 parents as if nothing unusual had happened. When he saw me, he gave a tired laugh. "Before you panic, she slipped. She turned it into a 3-hour production, but she finished." My mother came over and said they had taught her to finish what she started. My father stayed behind them. "We handled it the best way we could," he said. No one said pushed. No one said stairs. No one said pain. Then I noticed my niece beneath my father's umbrella. She was not looking at my daughter. She was watching the black canvas bag hanging from my brother's shoulder. "You still have her phone, right?" she asked. My brother turned so quickly the bag swung against his coat. I told him to give me the phone. He said my daughter had photographed private business records and that we could discuss it later, when everyone was calmer. That word had followed me through most of my life. Calm usually meant wait. Wait meant giving my family time to decide which version everyone was expected to accept. I did not argue. I put one arm around my daughter and tried to help her take a step. She gasped and grabbed my shoulder. I looked at my brother. From now on, put everything in writing. Then I got her into the car. I turned up the heater and wrapped my coat around her legs. I asked if she could feel her toes, if she could move them, and whether she had hit her head. She nodded through tears. Then she said my brother had warned her that the tour program could lose a school contract because of her. I did not ask for the whole story yet. For years, I had thought protecting my daughter meant arguing louder than the people who hurt her. That afternoon, I understood something different. The first job was not to win the argument. It was to get her away from people who had already decided her pain did not count. When the nurse saw her leg, she asked one simple question. How long ago did this happen? The nurse looked from my daughter's swollen ankle to me. How long ago did this happen? I told her it had been more than 3 hours. She asked how long my daughter had been walking after the fall, whether anyone had offered medical help, whether she had said she could not put weight on the leg, whether anyone had called me. My daughter answered quietly. Yes, she had said it hurt. Yes, she had told them she could not walk normally. A stranger had offered to call an ambulance. No one had called me. The nurse stopped asking questions for a moment and began writing more carefully. She explained that because my daughter was a minor, the hospital had procedures to follow whenever medical treatment appeared to have been deliberately delayed. She was not deciding who was guilty. She was documenting what had happened. The doctor returned after reviewing the scans. He told me some people could still move on certain fractures near the ankle, especially when they were frightened, full of adrenaline, or under pressure from adults. Walking did not prove the bone was fine. In my daughter's case, it had made things worse. While the staff prepared her for surgery, an email arrived from my brother. It was written on company letterhead. According to his report, my daughter had been moving too quickly when she slipped. No one had witnessed physical contact. Medical assistance had been offered, and she had declined it. She had voluntarily completed the tour. At the bottom, he asked me to sign a statement confirming that everyone had acted reasonably, based on what they knew at the time. I read it twice. It was not an apology. It was a shield. When the pain medication finally eased some of the tension in my daughter's face, she told me why her phone mattered. She had gone into my father's bag looking for a charger. Inside, she saw an old file. One of the letters had her cousin's mother's name on it. For years, our family had said that woman had abandoned her daughter. My daughter thought the letter was strange, so she photographed several pages. Her cousin saw her. She tried to grab the phone. Then she pushed her. My daughter said my brother came down the steps and took the phone. Before he asked about her ankle, he asked how many pictures had uploaded. That night, I opened the cloud account connected to the phone. Most of the files were ordinary tour pictures. Then, I found one damaged image. It showed an old report. A teenage girl's name appeared near the top. The date was 6 years earlier. One sentence was still readable. The girl continued walking for more than 2 hours, which was inconsistent with a serious injury. I stared at those words. Suddenly, I understood something I had not been ready to see. They had not made my daughter keep walking because they believed she was fine. They needed her walking. A girl who kept moving could later be called dramatic, unreliable, dishonest. A girl lying at the bottom of the steps was much harder to explain away. In the margin, someone had written 3 words in red ink. This is false. Beneath them were the initials of the woman my family said had abandoned her own child. Before I tell you what was hidden in that 6-year-old report, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I read those comments and I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. I enlarged the photograph. The name in the report belonged to no one in my family, but the handwriting in the margin did. The name in the report belonged to a girl I had never met. I searched for her while my daughter slept before surgery. Old school pages showed a teenager who ran cross-country and played soccer. Then, halfway through the school year, her name disappeared. Months later, I found a photo of her wearing a brace on one leg. There was no public story about a serious injury. In my brother's business records, the incident had been reduced to a few lines. A participant had slipped, declined assistance, and completed the route. The language bothered me because I had heard versions of it all my life. My daughter had come home from family visits with bruises before. Once, my niece embarrassed her in front of relatives, and everyone called it teasing. My mother said my daughter was sensitive. My brother said the girls fought like sisters. My father told me not to damage a family bond over small things, and I had accepted that. After my husband died, I was afraid of losing anyone else. I wanted my daughter to have grandparents, an uncle, a cousin, holidays that still felt full. I had not ignored the warning signs because I did not love her. I had ignored them because I wanted to believe the people left around us were safe. Sometimes a parent's mistake is the fear of admitting that family may be the place your child needs protection from. That afternoon, my mother arrived carrying flowers, a stuffed animal, my daughter's favorite cookies, and a release form. She said the insurance company could handle the medical bills if I signed. According to her, the whole thing had been one difficult judgment call in bad weather. I asked if she remembered the girl from 6 years earlier. Her face changed. Then she said she had no idea who I meant. I slid the paper back toward her. My mother said losing my husband had made me overprotective. She told me grief could make ordinary problems feel dangerous. Years earlier, that would have worked. This time I only said, "You were her grandmother," when she begged for help. She stared at me, then warned that children remembered things differently when adults led them. She mentioned the pain medicine they had bought during the tour. I had never told her the hospital asked about that medication. That was when I understood why she had come. The flowers were not for my daughter. The cookies were not an apology. My mother wanted to know what had already been documented. I told her she would not be seeing my daughter that day. After she left, I photographed the release form and sent it to my attorney. Then I opened my laptop and wrote an email to the mother of the girl in that 6-year-old report. The first reply came the next morning. The girl's mother wrote only 2 sentences. "We settled this years ago. Do not contact my daughter." I told her my daughter had just been forced to walk for 3 hours on a broken leg, and that the old report used the same reasoning my brother was using now. That afternoon, a former guide called me. He had worked for my brother 6 years earlier. He remembered the girl saying she could not put weight on her leg. She asked to call her mother. He wanted to stop the tour, but my brother said an ambulance would trigger a safety review. Before the girl left, my brother had the group take a photograph. Later, that photograph was used to suggest she had been well enough to continue. The guide told me his first account said she was crying, struggling to walk, and asking for help. The final report removed most of that. Then he gave me a name. My brother's former wife. She was the only person inside the family who had challenged what happened. We met the next morning at a quiet coffee shop in Cambridge. She arrived carrying a folder and asked me one question. "Did you support him during the custody case?" I had to tell the truth. I had believed my family. I believed she was unstable. I believed she stopped showing up for visits. I believed she had chosen to leave her daughter. Saying it out loud made me ashamed. She opened the folder. There were court filings, requests for visitation, attorney bills, returned packages, and copies of letters she had mailed month after month. She had sold her car to keep paying legal fees. She also showed me records of panic attacks she had suffered during that time. My brother had not invented those struggles. He had stripped away the context and used them to make everything else she said look unreliable. The most dangerous lies are not always completely false. Sometimes they contain just enough truth to make the rest easier to believe. She handed me one unopened envelope. Inside, the final line read, "You were never abandoned. I am still here." Then she told me why everything had changed. She had found the original notes from the girl's accident and realized my brother had altered them. When she threatened to report him, he began documenting every argument in their marriage and using those records against her. My mother helped him. My father knew, but stayed quiet, Before we left, she showed me an old email she had sent the former guide. The last sentence stopped me. If he succeeds in making that girl look dishonest, he will do this again. That night, my father emailed me from an address I did not recognize. There was one photograph attached. Beneath it, he had written one sentence: "Your brother made us prove that she could still stand." The photograph my father sent was taken less than an hour after my daughter fell. The group stood in front of a brick building. My daughter was at the far end, gripping an iron railing. Her injured foot barely touched the ground. The swelling above her shoe was already visible. My brother was smiling at the camera. Beneath the image, my father had written, "He said we needed proof she could still stand." That sentence changed everything. This was no longer just a bad judgment in the rain. Someone had been thinking ahead. The next morning, I hired an attorney who handled child safety cases. After reviewing the photo and old report, she told me not to confront my brother. "Let him keep writing," she said. We built a timeline. My daughter photographed the old file before the fall. The group picture came less than an hour later. Soon after, my mother bought pain medication. Her smartwatch showed an elevated heart rate, and her step count showed more than 2 miles after the injury. The route passed several places where help could have been called. Then my daughter recognized the woman who had offered to help. Her husband had recorded part of the argument. He offered to call emergency services. My mother claimed she was the responsible guardian and said my daughter sometimes panicked. My father asked whether they should call me. My mother said I would turn it into an emergency. My brother said they could not delay the group over teenage dramatics. The woman apologized. I thought her family would take care of her. So did I. Later, the former guide sent another photograph. The girl from 6 years earlier stood at the edge of a group, leaning against someone and keeping weight off one leg. 2 girls, 6 years apart, the same picture. My brother had not repeated a mistake. He had repeated a method. That evening, my father called from an unfamiliar number. He admitted seeing my niece push my daughter. He believed her ankle needed medical attention. He also admitted my brother had said that if she finished the route, no one could later prove they knew the injury was serious. My mother had warned that stopping the tour could trigger a city review. I asked him to put it in writing. He refused. "You still want the injured child to carry the cost of your fear," I told him. The next afternoon, my daughter received 2 messages through her school account. "Dad says I have to tell them you grabbed me first. Then, he says the adults never saw me touch you. This can be treated as a fight between cousins." My daughter looked terrified. I told her only one thing. Tell the truth to an adult your dad cannot interrupt. An hour later, the messages stopped. The next morning, my niece missed her first class. By lunchtime, she entered the school counselor's office carrying a heavy gym bag. Inside were my daughter's phone, a locked black file box, and 4 pages her father had ordered her to memorize. Then the counselor's door closed. The school counselor called shortly after lunch. She kept her voice calm, but I could hear the strain behind it. My niece had come into her office shaking. She said she needed to speak with someone who was required to report what she told them. She had brought a gym bag. Inside were my daughter's phone, the locked black file box, and a 4-page statement her father had told her to memorize. Then the counselor said something that changed the situation completely. She says she does not feel safe going home with her father. Until that moment, I had been thinking about protecting my daughter. Now I understood that 2 girls had been trapped inside the same system. One had been taught to endure pain. The other had been taught to help hide it. When I reached the school, my brother was already at the front desk. Rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. My mother stood beside him, speaking loudly enough for teachers and parents in the hallway to hear. My brother said the file box contained stolen business property. My mother insisted I had turned both girls against the family. Then my brother saw me. "Tell them to release my daughter and return my property." The principal did not raise her voice. "Your daughter asked for a counselor. She also said she does not feel safe leaving with you." His anger disappeared almost instantly. "She's 16. She doesn't understand what she's doing." That was when something became painfully clear to me. When his daughter obeyed him, she was old enough to accept responsibility. When she asked someone else for help, suddenly she was too young to make a decision. Controlling parents do not always want children to grow up. Sometimes they want them old enough to carry consequences, but still young enough to obey. The counselor later explained the statement my niece had brought in. She had not signed it. According to those 4 pages, my daughter had been jealous and aggressive. She had photographed private records, grabbed her cousin first, and caused the struggle near the stairs. The 3 adults were carefully placed far enough away that none of them supposedly saw the shove. Only the girls were left inside the dangerous moment. Then the counselor told me what my brother had said to his daughter. The business can survive 1 teenager making a bad decision. It cannot survive 3 adults refusing medical care. He had never planned to protect her. He planned to let his own daughter carry the shove while the adults walked away from everything that happened afterward. When school staff said the items would be preserved for investigators, my brother lost control again. He demanded that no one open confidential records. My mother shouted that the family was being destroyed over 1 teenage mistake. But they still would not call forcing an injured child to walk more than 2 miles an adult decision. I did not ask to see my niece. I asked only one question. Is she safe? The counselor said she was. The phone, file box, and statement were sealed. Several photographs had been deleted from the phone, but not everything was gone. Some files had already reached the cloud. Others remained in temporary storage. And there was one audio file. If you are still listening, please tell me how satisfied you are with the story so far in the comments below. It helps me know that there are still people walking beside me through this journey. Your presence means more than you know, and it gives me the encouragement to keep telling you what happened next. The following morning, my attorney called. She did not begin with the file box. She began with an audio recording that lasted less than 2 minutes. The next morning, my attorney played the recording for me over the phone. My daughter had been using the camera when her cousin reached for the phone. The image itself was useless. Most of the screen had been covered by fabric and movement. But the microphone kept running for less than 2 minutes. At first, all I heard were shoes scraping against stone. Then my daughter cried out. My niece's voice came next. I didn't mean to push her. There was a pause. My father said, her ankle is swelling. Then my brother spoke. His voice was calm. Too calm. No ambulance. If she finishes the route, it stays a minor fall. I stopped breathing for a second. Then my mother answered. It worked with Megan, the claim went away. After that, I barely heard the rest. When the call ended, I stayed at my kitchen table with one hand around a cup of coffee that had gone cold. What frightened me most was not that my mother remembered Megan. It was the way she remembered her. Not as a girl who had been hurt, as a method that had worked. There is a difference between a mistake and a method. A mistake is something terrible you do because you fail to understand the consequences. A method is something you remember clearly enough to repeat because it protected you the first time. Later that morning, my attorney told me what investigators had found inside the black file box. There was no single document that explained everything. There did not need to be. There was the original report from Megan's accident. There was the first statement from the former guide, written before anyone changed the language. There was the revised version. There were letters from the insurance company asking whether Megan had requested medical help. There were unopened letters from my niece's mother. And there was something I had not expected. A letter written by my father. He had never sent it. In it, he admitted that the original report about Megan was inaccurate. He wrote that she had asked for help and that my brother had changed the description before the insurance review. My father had known. For 6 years, the phone photographs added one more piece. One image showed a handwritten instruction in the margin of the old incident notes. It directed staff to replace the original statement before sending the file to the insurance company. The initials beside that instruction belonged to my brother. I looked at the documents again and felt something inside me settle. The file box did not simply prove that my brother had lied. it proved something worse. My family had been given 6 years to tell the truth, 6 years to correct a report, 6 years to give my niece her mother's letters, 6 years to admit what they had done to another girl. And every time they had the chance, they chose silence. The evidence had already said a great deal, but evidence could not replace testimony. And for the first time, each person in my family was about to tell their version alone, with no one sitting beside them to fix the story. The child interview specialist came to our house 2 days later. Before she asked my daughter anything, she gave her one simple instruction. If you don't remember something, you can say you don't remember. I watched my daughter's shoulders loosen. My family had spent years teaching her to give the answer that caused the least trouble. This was the first time an adult told her she did not have to make the truth comfortable for anyone. I waited in the kitchen while she talked. She described the shove, the phone, and my mother pulling her upright. She explained how my brother made her take 3 steps to prove she could walk. She remembered the group photo, the pain medicine, and the hours that followed. Then the specialist asked why she kept going. Because they said Mom would be ashamed if I quit. I had to look away. I used to think coercion sounded like a threat. Sometimes it sounds like disappointment. They had taken my daughter's love for me and used it against her. The adults were interviewed separately. My brother said the recording lacked context. He called the old report a standard template. He said he could not remember the exact route, and insisted he had no reason to believe the injury was serious. Each explanation collided with something already documented. My mother admitted buying pain medicine. She admitted telling strangers she was the responsible guardian. She admitted remembering the earlier case. But she said everything was meant to keep my daughter calm. When investigators asked why a minor fall required medication and why she stopped someone from calling emergency services, she asked for an attorney. My father arrived with saved messages. One from my brother said, "Do not call her mother until she completes enough of the route to show she is mobile." My father had replied, "She never declined the ambulance." My brother answered, "Then don't put that in writing." My father admitted he kept those messages because he feared my brother would blame him. Even the evidence that helped my daughter had first been saved for self-protection. That made his cooperation useful. It did not make it noble. My niece was interviewed with an advocate present. At first, she mixed the statement she had memorized with what she remembered. Then she was asked to start again and describe only what she knew herself. This time, she told the truth. She had pushed my daughter. She had not meant for her to fall down the steps. Afterward, her father took the phone. My mother made my daughter stand. My brother promised to protect her if everyone kept the same story. Later, she realized his plan had changed. He intended to let her carry the blame alone. When the final interview ended, no one was led away in handcuffs. There was no verdict that afternoon. But 3 days later, the first thing my brother lost was not his freedom. It was the right to put more children on his tours. 3 days after the interviews, the city suspended every tour involving students. The notice was temporary, but it was broad. The program had to turn over 8 years of incident reports, safety procedures, medical complaints, and records showing how serious injuries had been handled. The school contract my brother had been worried about was placed on hold. Then the insurance company opened its own review. They warned that coverage might not protect anyone if investigators found deliberate concealment, altered records, destroyed evidence, or knowingly false statements. My brother had spent years treating paperwork like armor. Now, the paperwork was becoming the one thing he could not hide behind. There was no single case that handled everything. The police were looking at the shove, the missing phone, and the possibility that records had been changed. The State Child Protection Agency was reviewing the adults who had been responsible for my daughter that day. The city was reviewing the tour permit. The insurance company was reviewing what had been reported to them. And the girl from 6 years earlier was speaking with an attorney about whether her old settlement should be examined again. No one promised me a quick ending. My attorney warned me that some questions could take months to answer. At first, that frustrated me. Then I realized something. The truth did not become less true because the consequences arrived slowly. One rainy evening, my brother came to my house. I saw him through the front window and kept the door locked. He stood on the porch and told me 12 employees could lose their jobs because I had refused to keep a family problem inside the family. I answered through the door. You made an injured child walk because you wanted to keep it in the family. He changed tactics. He offered to pay every medical bill. He said he would shut down the tour company himself if that was what I wanted. He even offered a private apology. There was only one condition. I had to tell investigators that the recording had been misunderstood. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. He still did not understand. This was not about getting money from him. It was not about hearing him say sorry in a room where no one else could hear. Then he said the sentence that finally told me exactly how he saw the situation. You already saved your daughter. Why do you need to punish everyone else? I stood behind the locked door and listened to the rain hit the porch roof. To him, my responsibility had ended when I drove my daughter to the emergency room. He did not understand that protecting her also meant making sure no other child was placed under the same adults, with the same rules, and the same pressure to stay quiet. I told him to leave. For the first time, I did not need an apology from my brother to know what he had done. But the person I struggled with most was not him. It was my father, the man who had finally told the truth after spending 6 years helping silence it. My father asked to see my daughter about 3 weeks after the interviews ended. By then, he had moved into a small apartment across town. He told me he had given investigators every message he still had. He had admitted seeing the shove. He had admitted knowing my daughter needed medical help. He also told me he had started therapy. For years, I had waited for my father to say things like that. When he finally did, I did not feel the relief I expected. Telling the truth now does not give you automatic access to her, I said. He was quiet for a long time. I used to think an apology was a door. After everything that happened, I understood it differently. An apology is only a knock. The person who was hurt still gets to decide whether to open the door. I asked my daughter what she wanted. She thought about it before answering. I believe Grandpa feels bad. I just don't feel safe with him yet. I did not correct the word yet. I did not tell her family deserved another chance. She was learning something I had taken much longer to understand. You can feel sorry for someone and still not trust them. My niece was dealing with consequences of her own. She admitted pushing my daughter. She began counseling and entered a juvenile accountability program. Bringing the phone and file box to school did not erase what she had done. She knew that. A few weeks later, my daughter received a letter from her. It did not ask for forgiveness. It did not blame her father. It said only, I pushed you. I stayed quiet when you were hurt. Both things were wrong. My daughter folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She did not answer. No one made her. My niece also began seeing her mother again, but there was no dramatic reunion. Their first meetings happened with a therapist present. They were short. Her mother did not attack my brother or demand to be called mom. She simply showed up. Sometimes rebuilding trust is less about saying the perfect thing and more about returning when you said you would. My mother never reached that point. She kept sending letters about forgiveness, family loyalty, my father's sadness, and my brother's lost business. Every letter somehow made the consequences sound like something I had done to them. I stopped responding. I blocked direct contact with my daughter. For most of my life, I had believed a boundary only counted if the other person understood it. I know better now. My mother did not need to agree with my boundary for it to work. The investigations continued for months. But the hardest part of my daughter's recovery did not happen in a courtroom or an attorney's office. It happened one quiet spring morning, on a short walking path near our home. 7 months after the fall, the investigations were still moving, but our lives had finally stopped revolving around phone calls and paperwork. My brother no longer had permission to run tours for school groups. The company had been forced to restructure. The old case was being reviewed again. My niece was continuing therapy and rebuilding contact with her mother. My father still had not seen my daughter. My mother still believed I had destroyed the family. I once imagined justice would feel like one heavy door slamming shut. It did not. It felt like smaller doors closing, one at a time. The right to contact my daughter whenever they wanted. The right to control the story. The right to supervise other children. And finally, the right to call our silence agreement. My daughter's leg healed well enough for physical therapy, but the harder part was teaching her to trust her own body again. She kept asking questions. Is this much pain normal? Should I keep going? Am I weak if I stop? That was when I understood the deepest injury was not the fracture. It was doubt. They had taught her to question the warning signs inside her own body. One quiet spring morning, she asked if we could try a short walking path near our house. There was no mountain, no group, no camera. Just the two of us on a flat path beneath new leaves. After a while, she slowed down. "Mom, my ankle hurts." I asked, "Do you want to rest or go back?" She thought for a moment. "I want to go back." Then we go back. I did not tell her we were almost there. I did not tell her to push through it. We turned around. 7 months earlier, my family had used the fact that she kept walking as proof that she was not really hurt. That morning, stopping meant something different. She was learning to believe herself again. She did not finish the path. Me, she smiled anyway. I used to think silence meant avoidance. My father used silence to protect people who were wrong, and 2 girls paid for it. But I had been quiet that day in the rain too. I stayed quiet long enough to get my daughter to the hospital, save the messages, and let the evidence speak. Silence is not automatically weak or strong. What matters is who it protects. Family is not defined by blood. Family is the person who believes you when you say you are hurting, and the person willing to turn around with you when you cannot go farther. If you stayed with me to the end, how satisfied are you with this ending? Do you think I was right not to force my daughter to forgive her grandparents or her cousin, or would you have chosen differently? Please share your satisfaction level and thoughts in the comments. Thank you for staying with my daughter and me through the final steps of this journey.